Today we're going to be discussing driving international DTC e-commerce through a robust data-backed approach. Today we're joined by Rachel MacPherson, and she's the SVP and GM of Global E-commerce for Marc Jacobs. And we also have with us Matthew Merrilees, CEO of North America Global E. So the growing cross-border e-commerce market, coupled with an increasing appetite among consumers for luxury goods, has created an unprecedented opportunity for high-end brands like Marc Jacobs to scale their global DTC business. Today we're joined by Rachel and Matthew for this fireside chat to discuss the iconic brand's international e-commerce success. All right, take it away, guys.
All right, pleasure to see everyone. And I think before we start, I wanted to get a raise of hands for how many people here know Rachel, because apparently since we walked over from the entrance, I think felt like I was walking with a celebrity. But no, pleasure to meet everyone here. I think the plan today is just to walk you through a bit of a story, a partnership that we had launched with Marc Jacobs here, and more focus on Marc Jacobs and the growth and exciting growth that they've had. And just to give you a bit of an introduction on even who Globally is, we are a cross-border enablement platform helping some of the largest brands in the world reach international customers in a variety of different ways. Publicly traded company, and with offices in 7 different regions throughout the world. So helping brands in the US, helping brands in Asia Pacific, in Europe, in Australia, and Japan, South Korea, you name it. But I mean, I think today the focus is Marc Jacobs, and to hear from Rachel, kind of telling a bit of the story of global expansion, where it began, where it led, some of the challenges that we're facing right now, and hopefully walk out of here with some insights to help you in your day-to-day.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here and see some familiar faces in the audience. And proud to be here with Matt as well. We have a great partnership. I mean, he did bribe me to come here. I asked for a lower rate. So anyway, but really nice to be here. It started a while ago, this partnership. And actually, it was because our previous cross-border solution in Q3 of 2018 went bankrupt and suspended all operations overnight. So we were in panic mode, and luckily Global E was able to come to the table and implement in a lightning fast timeline of 3 weeks. We were up and running, which was amazing. So our partnership started in September 2018. Luckily, they had a fully certified SFCC cartridge that allowed for an easier API implementation. And so within 5 months after we were launching, we were driving a massive growth in our order volume and our revenue of a triple-digit increase. So it's been a wonderful partnership.
And it's a timeline that we don't traditionally ever promote, but we do anyway, because let's just say it was a pinch, and it was one that I think it took both parties and all hands were on deck for it. But I think it's one of those likely scenarios where obviously you can't predict, and I think we came together and it worked out well. But 3 weeks is not common, so let's not ask for it. I think out loud as I speak too. Go ahead, Rachel.
So continuing to drive strong international growth is one of the top initiatives we have. It's an evergreen initiative, and we've been lucky to have the partnership with Global E. We really work with them on evaluating performance by market on an ongoing basis, on optimizations in terms of pricing strategies, even recommendations potentially from a paid media perspective, re-looking at shipping thresholds. So it's a partnership where we are very data-driven in how we make decisions together, and we've been able to really grow this business through their ongoing support, a really responsive team, someone who's dedicated to cross-border e-commerce that's guiding us through our journey and in this growth.
No, and I think it's always interesting, right? One of the questions whenever we're sitting down with any brand of any size, of any shape globally, one of the questions that even from those that are accessing international is how many team members do I need to run the business, right? And how many is it going to take to be able to expand globally to the point where I want to be able to, accelerate the business on a bigger scale. And I think whether it be a Marc Jacobs, whether it be a Disney, whether it be an Adidas or whomever that we operate with, the teams are usually quite compact and not, an extensive team that it's taking to be able to manage that business. But that is where we try to feed in as much data and intelligence, because as we're expanding with a brand as iconic as Marc Jacobs, they're everywhere, and everyone knows them. And it's how do we help, from an expansion perspective, understand what we can capture and accelerate now, but then more help give guided insights into where to go next, which I think is always a big topic. And where we, kind of feed in, I think this has been, the past couple of years of headwinds that everyone has faced, right? And how to navigate those headwinds. And I think the days of growing and scaling a business in a non-profitable way are days that are behind us. And I think businesses right now are focused on how do I grow and scale the business internationally, but how do I do it in a profitable way? How do I make sure I continue to drive EBITDA for the business, drive and accelerate the overall revenue goals that I have, but do it in a profitable way, which was never a topic in the past, specifically in the public market. And I think when you look at the headwinds that we faced, we got hit with COVID, we got hit with the war, which had a huge impact in Europe, more Eastern Europe, which then leaked into Western Europe. And then we saw inflation hitting very differently in every single region throughout the world. And then I think also you start to navigate into, call it luxury fashion, right? And how to be able to still see the consistent growth, maybe not at the pace that we would have expected, but how to manage those challenging times, and more importantly, how to lay out a data set, which we leverage on a very regular basis across a variety of merchants, to be able to say, what are the trends? What are the markets that are responding well? And we talk in quarters now globally, but we posted our Q1 earnings this year, which far surpassed where we expected even the market to be. Raised the guidance, but I think one of the things that when I look at the merchants and why, and where they're looking to globally for guidance on is, where do I go next? What are the markets that I'm seeing and trending, right? So what you're looking at right here is our globally data set, right? And what you're looking at is same store sales year over year of, call it the 1,000+ merchants, over 12 million transactions that have been trading for those same 2 periods, right? So you get a good gauge to understand, where is my peer group trading? Where are they seeing success? I think Mexico is one that continues to accelerate. And if it's not part of your plan for expansion, it should be. I think Europe was probably the biggest recovery market in Q1, as we saw a really big recovery from an overall, even just, FX component, which really hit hard last year, which made, call it, in a market like the UK, 20% buying more expensive in a single year, which is something that, was eye-opening to many. So these are the types of trends that we continue to feed in, and then obviously let the brand do what they do best, which is market and grow. And we did a bit of a survey. We did a survey specifically targeting social media and looking at where, and we interviewed over 9,000 cross-border specific shoppers, right? So I think this was really a focus to find out where and how were cross-border e-commerce shoppers finding brands. And then we laid it out by generation, with Gen Z and millennials really driving the overall uptick in engagement. And I think the biggest drivers here, Instagram being a focal point and still a dominant player, with Facebook trailing, with some of the the later year generational folks still buying and still driving that overall consumer behavior. But the most up and coming is TikTok. TikTok is showing that it is definitely having value from a cross-border international perspective, and consumers are finding brands through these channels. And would be curious just on the Marc Jacobs front, right? Because I think this is stats and data, but what have you seen and how have you attacked it?
Yeah, for sure. Paid social is one of our top performance marketing channels, and it's something we rely on considerably as part of our total performance marketing strategy. But I think that it's important to know, as you're trying to grow your brand awareness in a market, those lower funnel tactics and channels are certainly important, but you need to do also some larger 360-degree branding campaigns to kind of drive that awareness and upper funnel activity. And whether that's out of home or whether that's in-store events, PR activations, but it's important to know that you can't just drive the lower funnel conversion tactics to build your brand. I know Matt thinks everybody knows who we are, but especially in the international markets, that's not necessarily true, but we work hard at that larger 360-degree awareness campaigns in addition to our kind of conversion driving channels in order to totally grow the business in these markets that we're not as, our awareness isn't as strong as it is, for example, in the US.
For sure. And customer acquisition is also a big topic, right? I think every single brand discussion I sit in, it's how can I drive traffic? How can we look at building the proper traffic? And one thing that even we've been working on very, very hard as a business is we made an acquisition recently of a company called Borderfree, which came along with the assets of borderfree.com, which as a business, knowing the scale that we have, we're going to put a lot of investment into driving an already multi-million consumer database to be able to help brands drive traffic in a way that, you don't have to go out from a digital footprint. You don't have to think about, where do I go? And when you have a proven base, to make it as easy as possible for cross-border shoppers is the goal. And if there's a way that we can help build that into, our brand offering and help drive, then it's something that we're going to work feverishly to do, which is a big, big, big priority for us. And then expansion.
So yes, one of the other ways that we work on growth with Global E is expanding into new markets. So in Q3 of last year, we expanded into 4 new markets, and these were all kind of the overall performance of these markets within luxury and fashion were shared with us by Global E to give us an indicator of which of the markets we were considering were going to have the most likeliness of success. And so we launched Mexico, New Zealand, Singapore, and Philippines. So we have local payment options, local currency, tax and duty represented in the way that the customers expect to in those markets. And these 4 markets now represent 4% of our total international sales for Q1 of 2023. And we're going to continue to drive expansion through new markets.
Yeah, and I think it's also, as you approach the markets, it's having a good understanding of what markets are responding well, where the buying behavior is there, and it's something that you can capitalize on. And I think it's also localizing, which, I think they do a very, very good job of. And it's not just from an element of currency and payments and local acquiring and all the stuff that will unlock out of the door, but it's a lot of what what Rachel's team really is focusing on, which is communication. What is the proposition? Is it an all-inclusive, duty and tax-inclusive strategy? If so, how do I message it on the front end? How do I make sure that it's communicated through the banner? How do I make sure that it's translated where it needs to be? And those are the things and the effort, I think, of our team that obviously help drive the success of those markets.
I mean, this is just showing the Mexico checkout, but Mexico is by far the clear winner of the 4 markets that we launched last fall. They are now our 8th largest international market and growing exponentially, which is really exciting to see. And I think they could, wind up by the year end easily in the top 5 or 6. So really exciting to see how much that Mexico business is informing our brand decisions as it relates to potential real estate expansion and other conversations that we're having internally.
And it's a drive. It's a drive. I think FX, the strength of the peso, is definitely something that weighs heavily into it. I think the overall just e-commerce drive within the market, the overall percentage and acceleration of e-commerce in the market has, doubled, tripled, and continues to grow at a very, very unparalleled pace, which is exciting to see in that market specifically. But I think also it's, when we started working together, it was 2018, and we saw some initial amazing results. And I think always the challenge is, okay, now once we reach that growth, where do we head next? How do we grow? How do we accelerate on top of that? Because after year 1, Rachel looks at me and says, now, how are you going to repeat that in year 2 and year 3? And I think that's where I've been excited to be able to see some of the results, which you can talk about, but it's been amazing to follow.
Yeah, so we continue to comp our really high growth, which is not always easy to do. But 2022 total year versus 2021, we had a 70% increase in orders year over year, but versus LLY, it was 142%. So really consistent in that level of growth, which, as everyone knows, is hard to achieve. And you can look at, these are some of the top markets for us, and most of them are still driving a triple-digit growth within our top markets. So, and we have done activations, like I was saying before. Paid media amplification definitely happening in the Canada and UK. We've been pretty aggressive in terms of our out-of-home in France. In the UK, we opened our Regent Street store last July, and with that, we did a lot of in-store activations. So really kind of supporting these markets, not just in offering a cross-border fulfillment solution, but whether it's paid media, whether it's in-store or whatnot. Again, that 360-degree customer journey within the market.
Totally. And I think even, when you look at LVMH, I know Rachel and the whole crew has been, supportive in just growing the overall relationship. And I think when we start to look at what we've been able to accomplish with Marc Jacobs being the standout, I mean, over 30 Maisons right now within the LVMH group on the platform, which has been a big thank you. But I think, where's next?
Yeah, so these are just some of the markets that we're looking into expanding. So we're still evaluating them and working closely with Global E, and hopefully you will see some of these live on our site in the coming months.
Very cool. And I think the final, kind of element, and I think one of the things to leave you with is, is the overall strategy on how to drive growth and profitability within these markets. And I think one of the things that a lot of brands, as we speak, that really didn't even think was possible was we're starting to even see inventory positioning throughout the world, right? How do I get smarter with where I position inventory, yet not build a digital following to do that? And I think the days of setting up a website in each and every single market are the days behind us, where brands are starting to say, how do I consolidate? How do I get out of some of these markets because I don't have the replicated inventory in order to do that? How do I fulfill from a single instance, yet leverage multiple inventory, split cart, do a lot of creative things to drive yield, growth, and everything that the brands are trying to achieve? And I think that's where we're seeing cross-border e-commerce head. I think that's where we continue to see pressure from many of the brands to say, I'm going to put inventory in Europe, and you need to figure out how to serve it through your single checkout. And I think these are things that we continue to see evolve, which are really exciting movements and a just a drive forward. But with that said, I'm supposed to say thank you, and there was something else that I forget I was supposed to say from the moderator. But thank you, everyone, for coming. But no, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening in and hearing our story. And if you ever want to learn more, let us know.